You're listening to the Southern Gospel News Podcast, the most listened to gospel music podcast in the world, with your hosts, Darren Sutherland, Southern Gospel Hall of Famer Arthur Rice, and I'm Daniel Britt from Homecoming Radio. Now sit back and relax as you listen to SGNP. Welcome to the Southern Gospel News Podcast. I'm Daniel Britt with Darren Sutherland and Arthur Rice back in the hot seat again, and we've got a great guest coming up. I'll just tease this, okay? One of the most legendary names in gospel music, and so we're looking forward to talking to him. Darren's on the road today. I'm in the studio. Arthur will be joining us a little bit later because Arthur had a big night. We cannot tell a lie. When this was recorded, This is the day after the big SGMA Hall of Fame ceremony. Darren, you got a chance to watch it, right?
Yeah, I watched the whole thing, and let me tell you this. I'm a very big critic when it comes to, anything production-wise, whether it's audio or video. Like right now, I'm driving down I-16 between Dublin, Georgia, and Macon, Georgia, folks. So this probably isn't the best camera angle. How about that right there, Daniel? Is that a little bit
that's better. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, but I'd have to hold my right arm out the whole time for an hour for that to work. So if I balance my elbow on the armrest, I can get this to you right here. But let me say this. The NQC and the SGMA went together to produce that Hall of Fame show last night.
Yeah.
And let's face it, it's not a major market budget, but a great show. A great show.
Yeah.
And I told Arthur last night, when I was talking to Arthur last night, I said, dude, this is only on YouTube one time. Just on YouTube once. I said,
right.
This is a major market production. We could have sold this to RFD TV or Circle TV or somebody, or TBN or somebody like that. And Arthur texted me back and said, do you know anybody? And I said, at any of those places. And I just kind of rolled my eyes and said, dude, how do you think the Double Warts got on TBN? Come on, man. So anyway,
so you got a connection to make that kind of stuff happen, and that would be really good.
That's what we do. That's what we do. That's what we've been doing for 20 years. But you know me. I've always had my hand in a little bit of all kind of fun stuff. But hey, let me say this right here, and I made this promise, and I'll fulfill this promise by the end of the day today. Now, I've been a supporter of the SGMA for probably, when I'd say a supporter, for about 5 years, financially. But I've never been a member. And here's why I haven't been a member. I've been a member in protest that Kelly Neal Clark wasn't in the Hall of Fame. But yet there were some other people that had came in after her that had, for whatever reason, had gotten the Hall of Fame. So even though I'd sponsor the golf tournament, or I'd do this, or I'd bought a brick, I would not join because I thought it was a total injustice and a political move that Kelly Neal Clark wasn't in there. And they made her whole. And that's why you see some of the remarks on social media. Areas, my friend Josh Griffin.
Hey, Darren, we lost you on that last one. Your friend Josh. What did your friend Josh say?
My friend Josh Griffith put a statement up and said if Kelly hadn't got in after they announced Jeff Stice and Mike Holcomb, you would have burnt the place down. I wouldn't have burnt the place down. I would just been. I can't think right now. I mean, yes, there's some folks from the 50s and 60s who've been slighted. I will say this before Arthur gets on, out of respect for Arthur. He does a great job. But Dwayne Allen of the Oak Ridge Boys deserves to be in the Hall of Fame for what he did with the Prophets and the Oak Ridge Boys prior to his going country, so to speak. Truth be known, Mike Holcomb, great choice. Jeff Stice, he got in. Great for Jeff. I mean, Jeff was a teenager starting with the Blackwood Brothers. And he's probably was probably one of the last connections other than James's son to the original Blackwood Brothers. If there's a lineage there, Jeff died during COVID unexpectedly, which brings up a point of debate. Does Jeff get in this year had he not passed away? I can say that about Tony Green, or I can say that about Tracy Stuffle. But the bottom line is they called them home, Daniel. So you know what I'm saying? So I'm not even going to argue that fact. Herb Henry out of California, I'm thankful he got in. And people say, well, I don't even know who Herb Henry is. Herb Henry's an industry personnel. I can see Daniel Britt making it in one day. I don't think you'll ever see Darren Sutherland, the father of Southern Gospel Podcast, never making it in. But I could see Daniel from Homecoming Radio. So
No.
from an industry standpoint, I'm thankful Herb got in. So Jeff, Kelly, Herb,
and that's part of what that's what I appreciate about SGMA, and I would tell Arthur this too, is that it's not just the out front people. You know, it is those that are the face,
right?
But it's also those that stood behind the scenes and held it. And so somebody like Herb that's a great honor,
right?
And it helps. I think it preserves the true history,
right?
Because I think a history of only the out front people is only a partial history.
Well, and I look here's I had people ask me last night, who should get there that's not there. The two that come to mind, the top of mind, the quickest for me right now are Jeanette Cook, who we had on the show a couple of weeks ago, and Dwayne Allen. After that, I mean, you've got to start looking at Kirk Talley as potential. Believe it or not, and Lord, this is going to age him, but Jonathan Wilbert, I mean, certainly a candidate, and there's some others who gave their life to this music and gave it, their life 24/7, and I see more of the Gaither artists should be getting recognized in it. I mean, think about it, Jonathan. The folks that we used to play 25 years ago are now folks qualifying for the Hall of Fame, So that's the way it goes. What was your thought on the four that got in?
Hey, I thought well deserved, and Arthur kept a tight lip on it, which is appropriate, I guess. He said, I'm not telling anybody, because he knew for a while, and so it was all news to us. I think we saw it unfolding as the rest of the world did, and so I thought that was very good, and I haven't studied the list. And we certainly could talk to Arthur about this. I wonder if it's a challenge, because you probably when this thing started, you have the obvious. When you first start a Hall of Fame, you have the obvious matriarchs and patriarchs of the field. You got to put them in there, no question,
right.
And you're thinking especially of those senior citizen age, or even those who have passed on, right? Those who started the whole thing. Now, as time goes on and we live long time these days, you start running out of, you start having to kind of come younger, so whether age is even a qualifier or not, I don't know. But so that would be curious to look and see, well, so how many years of service, or how, and so with that comes typically age, but you get somebody like Jeff Stice in there who started young, then he's going to be in at a younger age.
Right.
Right. So, so that probably brings a predicament.
As I look at it, Daniel, now this is an argument that I've told people for 5 years in regard to Kelly. Kelly is the most, and there's some arguments with this with the Spear family, but Kelly is the most decorated second generation performer in the history of gospel music. And you could say, Dad Spear and Ben Spear, but Ben never won No Hopeless of the Year. Ben never won a Dove Award as far as I know. I mean, and certainly not to take anything away from Ben's production skills or his gifts, but as a performer only, Kelly has exceeded that of her father. I don't think Ben would ever say, I've exceeded that of Dad Spear, okay? I don't think Brock would say that either. Kelly can say that about her pop. I have exceeded what Rex has done musically. Now, industry-wise, she's not there, okay? And that's a whole new gamut. Rex, one of the members of the NQC board and the SGMA and all, and and one of the, for lack of a better word, power brokers of the industry for a long time. Kelly has done it straight singing. And man, what a great night for her. I'll tell you a funny story in regards to this. So I knew the show was coming on YouTube at 7. And at first, I thought it was on Singing News TV. Okay, I'll just be honest with you. I thought it was on Singing News TV.
Oh, yeah.
So I texted Todd Nealon, Kelly's sister, or Kelly's brother. He'll appreciate that comment, I know. But I texted Todd, and I said, hey, what's your sign-on for Singing News TV? And he said, I don't have one. And I said, does that mean Kelly doesn't get in this year? And he tagged back, LOL. And then I realized, hey, it's on YouTube directly, and it's not being produced by Singing News, which has got to have a backstory that none of us know about. Facebook, that the NQC and the Singing News didn't get together on this. Hold on, I've got to reconnect here. There we go. Probably stopped me at the right time in the middle of that comment, Daniel. I'm right here at Macon at the Okmulgee River. But anyway, I thought it was rather interesting that here we have, and this is just something fodder to throw out there for the fans, okay? Now, you got to be a hardcore P1 primary fan to understand what I'm about talking about. But Singing News TV does not produce or does not air the National Quartet Convention, Daniel, okay? They also don't air this SGMA NQC production. YouTube TV does, okay? But on the flip side, they do air the Memphis concert, they air Myrtle Beach, and a lot of other individual things. So what's going on behind the scenes that general fans like you and I have no idea about? You ever thought about that?
Well, I've been involved in some of these, not with Singing News, but I've been involved with some live broadcasts, at least proposals and ideas, and then we've executed some in radio. And I know there's often, when you're dealing with a large number of artists, everybody has to agree, or else you have blackouts. You have to say, well, you can't air them because they're not signed off to release it or whatnot. And so that's a major undertaking. When you put the video in, the audio in, you want to make sure it's a quality production. And so there's going to be that. But at the end of the day, I guess you probably have to come back and say, well, was there a discussion? And then was there a reason to agree or disagree to allow it or not allow it on this platform and that platform? And, one thing that would be curious is the YouTube and Facebook approach that, I guess it's probably, you could just do that on your own. So I guess and what Arthur told us is he and NQC went in together on this and put it out themselves. And I guess that's behind the choice also, to where it's out once. It was a live event. You could stream it. I think they repeated it, he said. So they streamed it live, and then it went into an immediate replay. And then after that, it was one and done. It was kind of old school in that regard, where, nowadays, most of us said, okay, well, I won't catch it live. I'll watch it tomorrow afternoon on my lunch break. Well, you couldn't do that.
Right. And,
which brings up another idea. There's an opportunity for somebody else to say, we want the replay rights, and we think this would go for on demand or for another airing somewhere down there, especially now that we're talking about it. So now we're given more fuel for this. Hey, I missed it. Well, guess what? Maybe one day somebody will take it and replay it for you.
With the exception of a video of Jeff Stice doing a video, all the footage in between the artists and in between the announcements was from the NQC last year. Okay. And about every major artist was there. On the show. So the core artists were there. But, I don't know what goes on behind the scenes. I've been involved in a lot of negotiations through the years. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but there is some reason we're not seeing the NQC on Singing News TV or on Gaither Net or something else that the general public's not privy to, and it's a business decision, and it's none of our business. It really is. I mean, the NQC is a privately owned foundation, organization, corporation, whatever you want to see it. They have a board. They're autonomous. They decide where it's going to be. They decide who's being invited. And although a lot of us look at the NQC as a family reunion of sorts, it is a club, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
And they've done a good job in recent years of bringing new folks into the club, i.e. last night, they put a video of the Morrison sisters on. Okay? Great family harmony, great young group. So, kudos to them for it. Makes sense?
Yeah, I know zero about what goes on. As we said, I know zero. So let me just phrase it this way.
We're just speculating and giving y'all fodder to talk about on social media. So anyway,
but what I have heard in the past, and not just NQC, but anybody who puts on concert events, music events, chooses not to broadcast it, because working in radio, yes, we wanted to broadcast everything we could broadcast. Yeah. We thought it was great value to a listening audience to bring more of that kind of content. But there was hesitation, as I mentioned before. Quality can often be, especially if you're doing it live, there is no forgiveness. If a mistake is made and it's broadcast live, you're not just limited to the thousands in the stands,
right,
but the tens of thousands that are watching it or listening to it. So there's that. There's the quality. Then there's also the thought that, and you could argue it either way. If we broadcast it, even for a fee, even if you have to pay to watch it online, pay-per-view, that could hurt your ticket sales. And ticket sales is still old school way of guaranteeing immediate income, I guess.
Right.
And so, and because the economy of the local area too, and hotels and all that stuff. So, and again, you could argue that both ways, that broadcasting it hurts the ticket sales. Others would say, no, it helps it, because it makes it a larger than life, a bigger than reality event, that you then will drive sales for the future events. And that's often the counter argument to it. And I've argued it both ways because I know. Yeah. And so you're right at the end of the day. So sometimes the best of both worlds is to say, well, let's film it. We won't broadcast it live. We'll either tape delay it a day or a week, or we'll package it for a product after the event is over, whether that's an old school DVD, physical product, or a stream that you buy a week or a month later. But anyway.
Dan, that brings an interesting question up for you. Excluding Gaither events, which you've been to a lot of major ones because you're part of the team, what's the biggest gospel event you've ever been to?
Well, you got to throw Singing in the Sun in there, because when you start factoring in that size of a crowd for that many days on end, and probably, and this is no slight against South Carolinians, but probably the majority of the people in the seats are not locals, at least not to Myrtle Beach.
Right.
So they're all coming in from out of town, destination event. So that's definitely got to be. NQC obviously would be big on that list. I remember going to the Freedom Hall in Louisville, Kentucky, and just sitting up there in the stands, looking down at the sheer magnitude of that place and the excited people that come from all over the world for something like that. So those are probably, and those are obvious answers. But yeah, we got Gaither events, you got NQC, and you have like a big festival type destination, which is Singing in the Sun. I'd put that in that category. I've not been out to Branson, or out to Missouri, but I know there's some big ones out there. West Coast does some stuff,
right?
And
how is Oklahoma City compares? You've been to Oklahoma City. It's a major event at the Maccabee Center every year for Gaither. You're there. How does that compare to Singing in the Sun, Louisville with NQC? How does that compare?
Yeah, so I've been to Tulsa. And okay. There at the Oral Roberts University. That building is pretty cool, because it was built, as Bill will say, that arena was built, and you can tell it was built by an old tent preaching revival preacher.
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody who understands acoustics, and you got to have a place big enough, but give it a small feel, or big enough, but it's got to sound good. And
right.
So that arena is special in that regard. I remember sitting there, especially especially post-pandemic, when you're still thinking back on the world being shut down and you're wondering, will we ever see the world open again? And will we ever see concerts like we used to see them? And being in that room where it was filled from floor to ceiling, and when Bill calls for the little flashlights to come out and you start seeing the twinkle lights and people singing, it's a pretty special feeling. Now, I will say, geographically, I think you're going to have differences between the Deep South versus the Northeast versus the West Coast, Midwest. People are a little bit different, and their reaction, but they say the spirit is strong when you get that many people in a room and you're all, and you realize you're coming from different churches. You're coming from different religious, experiential backgrounds. But when you can get in a room and you can relatively agree on a few core facts of Jesus and some similarities there, then that's a cool feeling.
Yeah. That's a cool. I think for me, the best live event I was ever at had to be NQC in Louisville. Okay. And it was just, it was when the stadium was in the round. I mean, the stage was in the round. Yeah. And it's just the sheer number of people that are there. And it's not only the people in the arena, but it's the people in the concourses. It's the people on the exhibit hall floor. It's everybody is there. I don't want to say under one mind and one accord. I want to say everybody's there with the same purpose. Okay? And that is to promote the industry as a whole. And what happens in those events like that is it's natural for groups to give their all. Okay? Now, I'm not saying, maybe I am saying it without saying it, that on some nights, some groups don't give it their all. Okay? I said it. Okay. I probably shouldn't. Okay? But it's something about the NQC where when Jonathan Wilbur knows Ivan Parker is going to be singing, Ivan knows Arthur Wrights is going to be singing, and Arthur Wrights knows that Ernie Haas is going to be singing, and Ernie Haas knows that Brian Free's is going to be singing, that they're all going to give it 160%. I'm not saying that they don't give 100% every night, because they do. Sure. Okay? But it's something about when your contemporaries are standing there watching you or coming up next that you want to do the best. Okay? Let me give you an example. Mm-hmm. When I did my show on the radio, it's just natural. Okay? When I did my show on the radio, my goal was I knew I could never sound as good as Daniel Britt. Okay? I knew my voice was never Daniel Britt professional. Okay? But I knew I could stir up entertainment and listeners as good as anybody. Does that make any sense? Yeah. So I would do that. So that's why I love Louisville, because, man, back in Atlanta, we were also next door to other studios, also doing live content, live shows at the same time. Right. And you feed off that energy. You're exactly right. I mean, we were arguably in the building with the number one contemporary Christian music duo in the nation. Okay, with Kevin and Taylor, Instead of Children of the Tree. Yeah. So I mean, that's that. But I also believe, Daniel, another great time, and I've been researching this as of late. I've been really reading about, since I read this J.D. Sumner book again, I've really been studying quartets. Okay? And what made great quartets. And when I looked at the time frame of quartets, I'm starting to believe, and here's another argument for another day, that period between about 1985 and 1995 may have eclipsed the quartets of the late 50s, early 60s. Okay? And here's why. Because I believe it eclipsed it in sheer numbers alone. And tell me what you think here. In the 50s and the 60s, you had the Statesmen and the Blackwoods, and then everybody else. Okay, now there were some good everybody else's. Prophets, Blue Ridge Rangers, Harmoniers, Rebels, blah, blah, blah. But you basically had the Statesmen, Blackwoods, and everybody else was second tier. Okay? And it was so dominant that the Blackwoods and Statesmen would own a market and tell a promoter, hey, if you promote Palmetto State and the Rebels and, I don't know, the Dixie Echoes, I'm just making this part up, then we're not coming to sing for you. And that's what happened. But that's how powerful they were. But in the late 80s, Daniel, you had Gold City, what I call Gold City mainstream number one, because there was a lot of, my buddy Harold McVeigh sang bass before Tim Riley did. Nobody knows who Harold McVeigh is but me, okay? And I didn't realize Harold sang bass with him until I met him and he was going to Cartersville Church of God, and I was on the radio, and then I looked back at the thing and, my goodness, Harold McVeigh was a bass singer for Gold City. But I'm talking about Tim Riley, Brian Free, Mike Lefevre, Ivan Parker, and Taco Flatapino.
Yeah.
That was, to me,
that was
Gold City number one, okay? For lack of a better word, okay? The thing about this, you had that version of Gold City.
Right.
You had a version of the Kingsmen with Hamill, Arthur Rice. Let me reconnect here. Hamill, Arthur Rice, Gary Shepard, Ed Crawford, Anthony Berger, Gary Dillard, and Greg Fox, okay? Oh, and by the way, we'll bring Foxy off the sidelines every once in a while to sing a song. Okay? So you had that. You also had the cathedrals. The cathedrals with George, Glenn, Kurt, Mark, and Roger. Now, this is before Scott and Ernie. Okay? And by the way, you had the Dixie Melody Boys with Rodney Bauckham, McCrae Dove, Ed O'Neill, and Harold Reed. Okay? Tell me that's not a fantastic lineup right there that people don't even realize was a lineup. You follow me, Daniel? So I'm at this. I mean, and let's don't even. I mean, and by the way, Singing Americans with people like Michael English, Buddy Burton. The list goes on and on and on and on. So that's why I say the 80s, and maybe it's just my time frame in the music, my age. That's why I say the 80s, I think, may have been a better decade for gospel music than we give it credit for. And oh, by the way, we had the Inspirations. I mean, think about that. 3 of the 5 Inspirations now are in the Hall of Fame, with Mike Holcomb being put in there yesterday.
Hey, start back with Mike Holcomb. Say what you want to say about Mike.
I mean, 3 of the 5 Inspirations are in the Hall of Fame right now. Oh, excuse me, 4. 4 of the 5. I forgot. Hold on one second. I'm going through Forsyth, Georgia here on 75, right there at that merge where the race starts. So, think about this right here with the Inspirations. Martin Cook, the pianist, he's in the Hall of Fame. Archie Watkins, arguably the greatest tenor of all time, is in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Troy Burns is in the Hall of Fame. Mike Holcomb is in the Hall of Fame. The only one that is not in the Hall of Fame right now is Eddie Dietz. Okay? And Eddie probably won't get there because he left to go preach for a few years. Now, if he had had continual service, he may have been there. And then the old bear hunter, he's not there because he's not the greatest singer in the world. Jack. I mean, let's just face it. Jack's a great guy, a great person, a great man, loves the Lord. But Jack, let's face it, guys, you never heard Jack do solos. Jack was the boy in school that hung around the right crowd and was everybody's friend, and that's why Jack's in the Inspirations. So anyway, boy, I'm going to get myself in all time trouble today. But I mean, think about this right here. Even back in the 80s, you had Palmetto State with Jack Pittman, Harold Lane, and Byron Carter. Okay, and whatever leader, leader, baritone you could find. Oh, and let's not forget the Kingdom Heirs with Steve French, David Sutton, Arthur Rice, and Jeff Caldwell.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, these are some great quartets that we had in the 80s, and I do believe the 80s, we've got this romanticism with gospel music in the 60s. And the reason there's that romanticism is there in the 50s and 60s is that's all there was in society, Daniel. That's all there was.
Yeah. Yeah. It was easier to bring in both crowds, the secular and the church crowd,
Right.
probably because there was just so few choices in general. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that becomes a discussion, in the 80s, if you're talking about the 80s, was there more of an emphasis on singing to the church crowd versus taking it to the secular marketplace as much? I don't know the answer to that.
I think the emphasis moved into the church crowd because there were so many quality groups that they had to have places to sing. Okay? That you know what?
Yeah.
Guess what? The Kingsmen wanted to sing twice on Sunday. So they booked Sunday morning and Sunday night. Okay? And by the way, a lot of churches were moving to contemporary sounding and playing Dallas Holmes and, the Imperials. And I get in trouble a lot of times for saying the Imperials were contemporary. I say all the time the Imperials were the father of contemporary music. I don't care what anybody says. But I mean, New Songs, Dallas Holmes, Phillips, Craig, and Dean, and people like that. And let's try this one more time. The churches couldn't match that orchestration or sound on a Sunday morning. They could come in with a Kingsman with a piano, a set of drums, a lead guitar, and a bass guitar and match anything out there. Oh, and by the way, in the 80s, we didn't mention the Florida Boys in the 80s and the 90s, who arguably sound-wise was better than the Florida Boys of the gospel singing Jubilee days. Okay? You can't tell me Harold Reed, it's not Harold Reed, what's his name? Daggum, he sings with Chuck Wagon Gang, Alan Cox, Jing McDonald, Glenn Allred, the Les Beasley didn't sound better in the early 90s, late 80s than they did in the early 70s. I mean, So, well, I just went on.
No, I mean the Florida Boys in the quartet world. I think the Florida Boys were huge in that era. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, why wouldn't you be huge in the early 70s and mid 70s if you're the Florida Boys? You're the host of the #1 syndicated show in most markets in America. If they put you and I on TBN today, okay, just say Darren and Daniel get to go to TBN, and every Saturday afternoon or every Saturday evening at 6 o'clock, Darren and Daniel is going to talk about gospel music, play their gospel music. We'd be recognized. We would be recognized, Danny. I mean, Daniel, just because where we were. So you're right about the Florida Boys. I mean, in the 70s. Great. I mean, I'm not saying they wasn't pros. They were great. Yeah. If you go back and watch some of that stuff, it's great. I'm going to tell you something funny. I'll make a funny out of it. And I wonder if this is true. Is Vestal Goodman's hair real on those old videos, or is it a wig? I have no idea. Have you ever seen it? It looks like something out of Hollywood.
I've heard Mark Lowry likes to talk about that, and he has said, and so I think there's truth here. I mean, he said that yes, it was something that she was able to add and take away. I'll just leave it at that. She could add and take away as needed.
I mean, I was watching it.
This is because she'd come down the staircase.
Yeah.
And he says that hairdo would be just, it kind of like doing what he said, a Marge Simpson as she's coming down.
Have you seen? Go ahead.
I would be curious. I don't know the answer. Maybe I'm not right here. But you go back and look. When did the Gospel Music Association? When did it start? When did the Dove Awards start? Okay, that would have been some of the early indications, I think, of what you might start calling the industry, the Christian music industry, if you're going to speak in those terms. And I don't think it's just the GMA. I think you have to look at things that are uniquely Christian. When you say a Christian world or a Christian industry, you probably put Christian bookstores definitely into that category. So you have the support of Christian stores. And then you've got, sheet music, and you've got churches that would buy choir, for choirs and church music stuff. So all those pieces as those started coming together, I would think that's probably what formed what we know as the Christian music industry, that would then separate itself from the early days of the 50s and 60s, where it was probably secular by default.
Yeah.
just because that's what it was. If you were going to sing publicly, you'd sing on radio or TV, which was probably what you consider a community or just secular, just general marketplace
the
stuff.
Blackwood Brothers and Statesmen are singing on the Ed Sullivan Show, which would be the equivalent of the Cathedral singing on Johnny Carson, which nowadays would be the equivalent of the Gaither Vocal Band doing backup for somebody singing on American Idol. That's basically where we are, So
because some people want to sit and argue, or and I guess you get the argument either way. You could say, all right, so should we only really be involved in the Christian industry because that's who we need to support it, and that's also morally and with our belief system, that's the most agreeable place for us to go and minister or go and sell a ticket is in the Christian industry bubble. Because then people say, well, all these people who step outside the Christian industry and they go and work in the secular marketplace, are they hurting the Christian industry by providing that competition to themselves? And so that's kind of where I'm curious to know where that kind of started to evolve and where the birth of it was. Would that have been the 70s? Would it have been the 80s? I think it was in full swing in the 80s based on my knowledge of everything. I mean, I grew up going to Christian bookstores to buy the Christian products that I wanted. You remember you used to go and you could preview either the album or the cassette or the CD. You could put on the headphones and listen to it before you ever took it home. That kind of thing.
I'm going to remind people of this right here. And the area of town I grew up in, South Cobb County. Well, you know the area I grew up in. Well, the biggest gospel artist to ever come out of South Cobb County, other than Kelly now, and the Nealons, I keep reconnecting. I'm going around that corner right here in Jackson. Hold on. There we go, Daniel. I'm going around that corner on 75 near Jackson, Georgia, okay? So the biggest group to come out of South Cobb County, other than the Nealons, and prior to the Nealons, was either the Lefevres or Wendy Bagwell and the Sunlighters. Okay,
Sunlighters, Wendy Bagwell,
Wendy Bagwell, the Sunlighters. Okay, if we go to the general public of people who have lived in South Cobb County for more than 50 years. And we ask them what Wendy Bagwell did for a living. You know what they're going to say? He owned a furniture store. They're not going to say he's the father of the Rattlesnake song. They're going to say Wendy Bagwell and Bagwell Sales down there.
Right.
Okay? And guess what?
Yeah.
That was his job. He was a gospel artist. That was his, for lack of a better word, and he did, it was, and this is an awful paraphrase, but I'll say gospel music was his side hustle. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he was doing major concerts, but that was his side. Selling furniture was his main gig. So when we say to folks, Dwayne Allen doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame, and I'm circling back around to that, and I'll always circle back around to it. You know what? He sang gospel music in front of more people than anybody I know. And I'll tell you somebody else who deserves consideration. If you look at the charts, you ready for this one? And this will fire a lot of people up.
What's that?
Jimmy Swaggart. Go back and look at J.G. Whitfield's charts. It wasn't until Maurice took over that Jimmy kind of got eliminated from the charts. Okay? The singing news. I don't know why he got eliminated. I don't know the story. But anyway, somebody out there does.
Well, you take it to the street, and I did not grow up under the same denomination as Jimmy Swaggart. My family had no connection to that necessarily that style of preaching or theology. But we had Jimmy Swaggart 8-tracks in our old Chevrolets driving around town. You know,
and let me tell you this: still to this day, if I'm flipping through Spectrum Cable TV, and I come across Sunrise Broadcasting, and I see Jimmy playing the piano, I'm going to stop and listen. I'm going to stop and listen.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Hey, back to your Wendy Bagwell thing. I think that's really interesting because you could even say it the way that we often hear the argument about like Dwayne and the Oak Ridge Boys. You could say it this way: that Wendy Bagwell supported his family by selling secular sofas.
Yeah. You're exactly right.
Maybe the way that Dwayne sang a secular song, to help pay the bills or something, so that's using Dwayne as an example, but you could fill in the blank of a Dwayne Allen with anybody else that you want to put that argument to. So why are they singing that? And obviously you could say, well, the sofa is not neither saved or unsaved. Right. And that brings back the same argument. Well, is a B flat spiritual note more so than an A?
You're right. I mean, think about this right here. And I'm going to pose you another question since we went deep today. I mean, Wally Fowler, one of the biggest franchisees of Kentucky Fried Chickens in the world. Okay.
Yeah.
I think he owned all the franchisees in 4 or 5 states at one point. Okay. Wally Fowler, the father of the all-night singing. Colonel Sanders goes to and sells him them. I'm thinking he owns Florida and Tennessee and Alabama and Mississippi, if I'm not mistaken. Okay?
Wow.
What do you think he would have rather been, a gospel music piano player or a Kentucky Fried Chicken franchisee? You know what I'm saying? So, we should have asked him, Daniel. One of the big regrets that I have is I had some great interviews with Charlie Waller at one time that I should have taped every single one of them. I mean, Charlie was an amazing guy. Let me run this by you real quick, and before we get over here, and Arthur ain't here, so today, we've had a little bit of, for lack of a better word, we took the railings off the road and kind of went rogue, so to speak. What do you think? Do you think Southern God? Think about this. All major denominations, except Southern Baptist and Independent Baptist, have women in leadership positions now. Think about gospel music, Southern gospel music. Are we lacking in females in leadership positions? And is that hurting the genre overall? I mean, when I think about women, when I think about women in the business, I think about Karen Peck. Okay, she's on the board for the. She helps with the singing in the sun out, and she does. Matter of fact, her own homecoming singing's this weekend or next weekend one. Okay, but we got Singing in the Sun. That's number one. So Karen. Number 2, Becky Simmons. Who's run BSA World, the booking agency in Nashville, for 100 years. Okay? After that, tell me a female power broker inside, that's not a singer on stage, that's outside the industry. And does that hurt? Because think about this, Daniel. 65% of the crowd when you go to a gospel singing, it's what? Women. You're a programmer. Who are you programming to?
Right.
Women. But yet we got a bunch of men deciding this is the way the show's going to be. There's not a woman on the NQC board, as far as I know. Maybe I'm wrong. Clark, if I'm wrong, I'm sorry. I don't think I'm wrong. But yet 65% of your crowd is female? Makes you wonder.
I can't remember the book, but we read a book that talked about how car sales, if you don't understand who is the person buying the car, and we're talking about women. Okay, so if you don't understand what the average lady is looking for as a feature in a car, then, and I'll just put it in these terms, then a male salesperson may go and try to sell the specs of the engine, the torque, all these other things. But if you're missing brass tacks of like, are there enough cup holders? Is this going to make my life easier to get my kids in and out? If you're missing those pieces, you're missing a major opportunity to sell a car or design a car if you're a designer. And so I think that so you take it back to just the simple facts. If 65% of the audience is female and they're coming, you find out, why are they listening to this music? What does this music do for them?
Right.
And how can we make it better for them? So, and probably you'll find out is so then they can influence their families, and they will. They'll influence their husband, they'll influence their children in listening to this music and carrying on this as a love of theirs for another generation. So I think it's wise to lean into that and to say, okay, what could we do better? And you have to get out of just a single mindset of like, okay, this is the way we're doing it because of what we think is good. And that's challenging. And I think in the church, you typically end up with the argument, well, it's not just about our comfort. We got to stay true to Scripture, and the old paths. And I'm not arguing that. But when you're talking about a gospel concert and how do we, what type of, you can just talk about, do we want fast songs or slow songs? Well, find out what she likes. Just find out what she likes. Who's buying the ticket?
Yeah. I tell people all the time, if I'm going to a singing, I want to go to a singing. If I'm going to a revival, I want to go to a revival.
Yeah.
You follow what I'm saying? Yeah. I mean, and you think about this with our beloved female singers. They have more pressure on them than anybody. Because not only do they got to worry about everything they say on stage, okay? Because, quote unquote, I ain't supposed to be talking, blah, blah, blah. With some folks, they got to worry about the length of their dress or if they wore a dress or not. They've got to worry about the thickness of their makeup and the length of their jewelry. And is their hair long enough or short enough? Is it in a ball? Is it not in a ball? Think of all these things in gospel music that we encompass these ladies with that they have to worry about. I have wondered sometimes, and I bet it's happened, and people don't believe me when I say this. I imagine some gospel artists have went and sat down with image consultants and said, hey, what do I need to do from a public relations standpoint for people to love me more? Okay?
Mm-hmm.
For people to like me more. I mean, can you imagine the pressure on that? And you're a woman anyway, so you're, it is what it is. So anyway.
Yeah. I mean, and again, back to what I said about geographically, you're going to have that different, strong opinions that will be voiced, and people don't really usually keep that quiet. So they'll voice their opinions on how you look or what you said. And it may be different, like I say, in California than it is in Alabama. Yeah. Or it may be different from New England to the Midwest.
Well, it can be as different
and
in
then you subdivide it between churches. Yes. Yeah.
Think about this right here. Bristol, Tennessee compared to Dyersburg, Tennessee. Bristol's on the East Coast, Dyersburg's on the West Coast. That's two different kind of people.
That's right. Exactly.
I mean, Asheville, where you hang out a lot, to Wilmington. That's two different kind of people. Atlanta, to where you usually have Warner Robins. That's two different kind of people, two different kind of services. So, I think it anyway. Man, we've talked about a lot today, ain't we?
Well, it does keeps you curious to know how to. I don't envy that position. If I were in that position, it would be like, okay, well, how do I? Because I'm a people pleaser, and so I just want to please people. And so, this person said that my hair was too long. This person says it's too short. So do I just split the difference and go in the middle, and then have to talk to my hairstylist and say we can go no more than 3 3/4 inch, whatever. So we got to keep it right there, and so then that just carries over into, this feeling of legalism, whether it's meant to be or not. And then that could drive you crazy.
Think about this. In today's world of gospel music, Emily Ann Roberts is probably one of the most attractive young females in the business. That means, folks, I'm being superficial here. She was blessed with extraordinary good looks, unlike me that has a voice for radio at best, okay? So Emily Ann Roberts, and she comes out wearing a skirt that is a little over knee high and a pair of boots and some hoop earrings. People are going, they're just going crazy because she's more attractive than anybody else on stage. What she isn't that? But if she goes out there and looks homely, they're saying, man, she ought to take more pride in carrying herself than go out there looking like that. And why is she wearing her hair down instead of not wearing it up? You follow what I'm saying? It ain't fair to these ladies. It ain't fair one bit. There needs to be more ladies running the industry. If you're singing a 65% female, then hire a lady to run your business.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
Well, two interesting things on the Emily Ann, because I saw this, and if my memory serves correct, it was the Country Music Television channel, post CMT, I think, posted a video of her singing a song about the church.
Yeah.
And so number one, it wasn't a Christian post, because we typically think, well, we're in there fighting amongst ourselves. Well, this is on a secular page. And one of the comments, because you're right. I mean, she got beat up from all sides on that thing. But somebody came in, and I thought they were going to defend her, because they said, well, it looks like she's done everything right. But then they had their own criticism. They said her skirt's long enough, she's wearing a jacket, her hair is long, she's a pretty girl. And then they had some butt they put in there. And I was like, well, wait a minute. You just checked all the boxes that normally everybody else would want to sit there and criticize.
I was in the presence, okay, the day, early 2000s, the day Sonia Isaac's country CD came out.
Oh.
I got one at the radio station, okay? Got it in the mail. We had a concert that night with one of the most popular trios in all of gospel music. They're a quartet now, but still one of the most popular groups. If I brought the leader of the group's name up, everybody would know it. He looks at the cover of the thing, looks at Sonia Isaac, and said, that looks real Christian-like. And I'm sitting there thinking, dude, come on, man. I've heard the jokes you tell on your bus. So, anyway, women just get an unfair shake in gospel music. I mean, they really do. And
I agree.
No wonder the women of gospel music a lot of times are like us DJs. They're insecure. They are, because, nobody means to hurt their feelings, but they just feel like they need to tell them the truth sometimes. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I know we talked about dress a lot, but I mean, because basically this, I've heard this, and I can agree. I don't envy it, between hair and just a man putting on a suit and a tie. I mean, I've heard it. My own wife says, well, it's pretty easy. You just have a white shirt and a couple different suit colors, and all you have to think about is the tie color. Just you change the tie out for variety, and that's less to worry about.
Does Bill get picked on for wearing that hat?
I don't think so. And you know what I've said before is, if you're going to start fussing about a hat, you got to go back and look at some of the older guys, like look at Hovey. And I know Hovey was wearing a hat for a reason, but yeah.
Entertaining conversation this afternoon. We'll circle back and close it out about the Hall of Fame game. I could sit here and talk about this stuff for an hour. I'm driving down the road. You got work to do. We'll fuss at Arthur. Arthur was in a staff meeting over at church. We're going to have to get these meetings at another time and get them done. And I'm going to have to call our guests and say, dude, this is 2 weeks in a row. Why'd you let us down? Should we go ahead and mention your name that you missed us 2 weeks in a row? Let's, anyway, I'm just messing. But anyway, congratulations to Hall of Famers once again that were chosen. Herb Henry. Herb is if you don't know who Herb
Mike,
is.
Jeff, and Kelly, right?
That's right. Herb Henry, Jeff Stice, Mike Holcomb, and Kelly Nealon Clark. So, anyway,
very well
Jason.
Very well
Jason. I say, Jason, how's it feel to be married to a lady that nobody knows her real last name? We all know her as Kelly Nealon. It's Kelly Nealon Clark, folks. But we're proud of her. And you know what? I'm gonna share this story. I've never shared this story publicly, and we'll close out with this story here, unless you got something else, Dave. My daughter is now 26 years old. 5 years ago, at 21, she was diagnosed with stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer at 21 years of age, all over her body. I told the story on Facebook. Well, hold on one second. Daniel, I told the story on Facebook.
I can hear you now.
And I asked for prayer for my daughter with Hodgkin's lymphoma, stage 4 cancer. I told the story on Facebook about it. One of the very first people to reach out to me via telephone. And folks, I don't have the relationship where I talk to them every single week or once a month. Todd and I talk once a month. Kelly, I may talk to Kelly every 3 to 4 months. I may talk to other artists once a month. It's not like I'm buddy and I'm eating dinner at their house kind of thing, and we're family, okay? But Kelly calls me and says, Darren, she didn't call me. I don't know if I think she called me. I can't remember if she called me or sent me an email. I wanted to know my address. And I said, what do you want my address for? She said, I want to send you some money. I said, what do you mean you want to send me some money? Well, I want to help you with your daughter's Hodgkin lymphoma cancer. Okay? And Daniel, I'm sitting here thinking, this lady's a gospel music singer. She wants to send me money. Heck, I ought to be sending her money. She's out there ministering to people, but she wants to give to me. Okay? I called her girl.
Yeah.
I said, the thought means the world to me. Ever since she did that, I've been endeared to her.
Yeah.
Ever since. I could say some other things, that I don't necessarily agree with, but that doesn't matter. Kelly is my friend. I respect her. She deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Mike Holcomb deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Jeff Stice deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Herb Henry, I'm proud that we got the industry guy in the Hall of Fame. And I think some Hall of Fame barriers are going to be broken in the next 2 or 3 years. And it's going to be interesting. Here's what's exciting about it, though, Daniel. Think about this right here. The popularity of the Hall of Fame now. Just the general scuttlebutt.
Yeah. Yeah.
We never heard this 20 years ago. And I mean, there were bigger names 20 years ago being discussed than they are now. Think about that. How do you decide when, how does somebody decide when J.D. Sumner gets in there over James Blackwell? You follow what I'm saying? I think they went the same year. That's an awful thing. But how do you decide Jackie Wilburn or Ed O'Neill? Which goes first?
Right. Yeah. That's a tough job. And I think that by joining up and supporting at sgma.org, I think that's where you get a good voice in there on that too. So
$20.
Yeah.
All it is
Give a
to
good
be a
plug
member,
there for
$20. And you too can vote. And I'm anxious to see. Kirk Talley will be in the Hall of Fame one day. Kirk will be in the Hall of Fame, without a shadow of a doubt. And there's going to be some people that are aggravated over for whatever reason. Let them. But Kirk Talley belongs in the Hall of Fame for his contributions to gospel music. That's what the Hall of Fame should be about. If we want to make a deity Hall of Fame, who's closest to the Lord, create that on your own.
That's a different organization.
You follow what I'm saying? We're talking gospel singers. Think about what J.D. said. I'm a singer who sings gospel songs. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Man, I'm going to get in all kind of trouble today.
I mean, it comes back to it happened. It was history. It was good. It was successful. You can look at sales charts. You can look at the popularity of the recordings. And if you're looking back over history, and you're saying, identifying a who's who, and as you say, a contributor, meaningful contributor to this industry, then you got to look at them all. You got to be fair with that.
I got to tell you a funny story. I know we're running late. I got to tell you this. This is hilarious. So I'm at a church one time, and the minister of music noticed who I was, and he came down, started talking to me, and said, Darren, he said, there's some of these people you back up, I wouldn't give you 50 cents for. Okay? What is that? He said, I love you, man. I appreciate your candor, but I wouldn't give you 50 cents for such and such. And I said, you know what? I can agree with you. You're still my brother in Christ. I don't agree with you, but thank you for your candor. Would you believe that very singer he said that about, he turns around and the first song he leads was wrote by that guy. And at the church, I said, man, I said, dude, come over here and you butchered this guy and told me what you thought of him. But yet the first song you lead is by him. You let the choir lead as a call to worship.
Yeah.
You lead.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll leave it at that. That tells enough story.
Exactly. Oh my. That's fun.
So we could talk about this every day. And oh, by the way, and I got to tell you this. We didn't even talk about social media this week. There ain't no sense in it. I had somebody tell me on social media all I posted was hate. That's all I posted was hate.
Huh.
Can you believe that?
And by the way, that's it's that you if you want to find hate, you go to social media. You can find it quick. I don't think what you're doing is hateful.
No.
You want to see real hate, you can find that in a hurry.
That's true. That is so true. Southern gospel music is the best form of music in the world. It's the only bomb, and I bomb BALM, folks. Okay.
Yeah.
It's the only bomb that can bring together denominations, cultures, political unrest.
Oh yeah.
And race and theology. That's it. That's why Bill Gaither's been so successful, because he's brought them together.
Yeah.
Go back, go back and watch his live at Kennedy Center. Probably, here's what we need to do, Daniel. I don't know if I'd let you do this or not, but we need to do this. We need to go through those Gaither videos and give a play-by-play, kind of like what they do on the wrestling podcast about the matches. and we'll listen to Vestal sing one, and then give our commentary over what we thought about Vestal doing that song compared to other songs.
Yeah. Yeah, you're talking about bridging, and I was noticing this the other day. Looking at social media does this. It brings your friends together in one place, in a sense, and you can see. Well, a lot of my friends are connected through gospel music, and I would dare say I have a more varied group of friends because of gospel music.
Oh, I agree.
Than if I had no connection to gospel music. So, in other words, maybe I would more tend to run in a theologically closer. What am I trying to say? We would be so more alike if I just ran with friends that I picked because we went to the same church, for instance. But because gospel music's going to bring in people who sometimes frequently maybe don't even go to church, but they like gospel music, or it's going to bring in different denominations, but we have the same love of the gospel music. And so, because also, politically speaking, people who like to be outspoken about politics, you can see that real quick. You got people on both sides of the aisles on my friends list who love gospel music, and that's curious because you sit back and you think, I thought everybody believed one way if you like gospel music. No, it's not true. So
here's a flaming arrow I'm waiting in gospel music to happen. Okay, and here's a flaming arrow, and I know I've said 3 times I'm going to end the show. And we probably need to end it because we've been going an hour now, and we seldom go an hour, but this has been fun. Here's the flaming arrow I'm going to throw out there. When do gospel music groups get criticized now for singing in United Methodist churches? Based on the denominational rules, United Methodist churches have just extended in the growth of the global Methodist church. And basically, it's breaking down on political lines.
Yeah.
Are we isolating our groups so that we can't reach past the borders? You follow what I'm saying? The way we think. Yeah. It's a dangerous slope. Let the music be the message. And I keep saying that over and over and over. Let the music be the message.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to the songwriter, and it goes back to the, are we saying something with the songs? Because that's important, at the end of the day. Yeah, because you could argue that. Again, and I've kind of alluded to it. You have the argument, no, we got to take a stand, and we can't, if we don't agree, we shouldn't cross that threshold. On the other hand, you have the argument that says, Well, maybe we don't agree, but if they'll have us, if the music in that instance, if the music is unifying, in other words, if the music is our open door invitation into a place that doesn't agree, maybe we are part of the instrument of change that could happen, Yep. And so there's that. I've heard that argument. If you just because your church does something you don't agree with, maybe you're there to be that voice of truth or whatever, to say, hey, we need to go back to this way or whatever. So, and I don't know the right answer, but I know there's those. I can point out both sides of the argument with the best of them, and those are both sides of that argument.
We have fun with it, but you know what? Yeah. We love it, and thanks for listening to the show, man. We've had fun. Arthur's gonna be mad he missed this one.
Yeah,
maybe not.
Well, with him absent, we get to push harder to say, become a member, SGMA.org.
Right.
And we can say, well, he had nothing to do with it. So we just said it. We said it, even though he wasn't here outside of his presence. It's a good organization and support.
Let's say this about Arthur and Tammy. This is, other than leading music at their church, the Southern Gospel Music Association to Arthur's life. He gave a good portion of his life to that organization and building it. He was one of the ones when for lack of a better word, Dollywood said, we don't want y'all here anymore. And I'm not sure that's how it went. I'm not going to blame it on Dolly. Totally Dolly don't have anything to do with the day-to-day operations. They lease her name, for goodness sakes. The Hirschfeld family, who's a Christian family, by the way. But, they felt like there was more that they could do with that location and have the Hall of Fame there. And they needed a Hall of Fame. It was Arthur who went out and signed the partnership with Biblical Times. And it's Arthur who's been the one raising money, And it's give it up to him. It's Arthur
absolutely.
Who travels to Alabama, to North Georgia, and all over the place to raise money for the SGMA and speak for it. And by the way, he's full-time minister of music at his church. So he don't really need, he's got enough aggravation doing church work. Anybody who's ever done church work knows that. Without the aggravation of the SGMA. So, and I'm sure, somebody last night. So we put, congratulations to all these people on social media that was in the Hall of Fame. And somebody writes, well, what about Jeanette Cook? I told her she wasn't going to get in. I'm like, come on, man, let's let the people who won have their day in the sun talk about Jeanette. Mark, Jeanette deserves to be in. We'll get her there. May not be, whatever, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Well,
and that's a problem. If you put everybody in on the first year you open the thing, then what do you do for the other 50 years,
That's right.
You drip, and give them some good honor.
Just promise me this, Daniel. When you get in, you'll mention my name in your acceptance speech. Okay. That's the only way I'll ever get in. Okay?
I don't know. So, sometimes those bronze plaques, some of them resemble pretty well, and some of them are like, I wonder what photo they sculpted that one out of. It's always fun to go through and kind of look at the different eras.
I agree.
Well, what age were they when they sculpted this image?
Yeah. And again, no slack on this. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I just hope I'm having a good hair day if that were ever to happen.
There you go. Well, you can get yours with a hat. By the time you're old enough to be in the Gospel Music Hall of Fame and they put you in there, you'll have a hat on, okay?
Oh, listen, okay.
All they'll put me in there is if I ever got in there, they'd put a social media panel up there. You wouldn't even put my face. They put Facebook.
It's right. That's funny.
Facebook.
That's funny.
There you go. Social media mega church pastor, Darren Sutherland. Hey, we're just rambling down, man. Hey, Daniel, I'll ask you what Arthur always asks me. What's wrong with living right anyway?
Hey, not a thing.
And you've been listening to
SGNP, the Southern Gospel News Podcast. Check out the Facebook page and the website for a full archive of past shows. See you next time.